Hej och hjärtligt välkomna ska ni vara till Invest Live. Idag med Fredrik Johansson, vd Energifonden Sverige. Följt utav PTX-Metals från Kanada som presenteras av vd Greg Ferron. Först ut är Energifonden Sverige, aktuellt med ett erbjudande till allmänheten om att fram till den 7 november teckna 2 nya ränteobligationer i Energifonden Sverige. Så med det är det hög tid att välkomna Energifonden Sverige och dess vd Fredrik Johansson. Hallå Fredrik, kul att se dig.
Tack för att vara med. Tack.
Ja. Välkommen, berätta mer om obligationslånen. Varsågod.
Ja, tackar. Vi kan ju dra en presentation lite grann här då. Vad är Energifonden? Jo, det är ett familjeägt energibolag som jag har etablerat och som jag är vd för. Och vi har en vision då att vi ska investera i bolag som håller på med energi på något sätt. Och framförallt då skapa avkastning till obligationstagarna. Och om vi då tar nästa bild här så har vi lite då om hur vi investerar och så då. Det är alltså att vi vill alltid ha en ägarandel som ger ett betydande inflytande så att vi är med och bestämmer, vi är med och beslutar om strategi, när man ska sälja tillgången, hur man ska utveckla det och att vi har full koll på bolagets finansiella status. Så därför så äger vi alltid minst 50%, men vi har något undantag. Och vi investerar alltid ungefär med en exitplan, så att inom 3 till 5 år efter att investeringar har gjorts så avyttrar vi. Och detta har historiskt skett mycket tidigare, oftast efter 1 år. Vi har också fall med 5 år, men det vanligaste efter 1 år, 1,5 år redan. Och på den här cykeln då så har vi mål att man ska uppnå då för att kunna avkasta de här obligationsräntorna. Så ska vi uppnå en avkastning på ungefär 50% i etablerade energibolag och energiprojekt på en cykel då på 5 år då. Vi tar nästa slide här. Så här kan man se lite grann ett urval av de stora innehaven som vi har just nu. Och vi har då Pallas Tankers AS, och vad är det för något? Jo, då är det alltså ett bolag som håller på inom energilogistik. Det transporterar olja till sjöss och det äger en supertanker, en VLCC-tankfartyg som heter Agneta Pallas 3. Så det här fartyget transporterar råolja globalt då. Och just i dagsläget så ligger fartyget och lastar i Kongo och ska vidare till Indien med det här. Så att det är väldigt globalt. Vi har även Pallas Energy. Det är ett bolag som handlar med och förvarar och transporterar bränslen, biobränslen och fossila. Vi har en egen depåterminal i Trelleborg. Och där sker den stora lagringskapaciteten finns där och där sker den stora handeln. Och om vi då går vidare så har vi ägarandel i BTG Kamsamax. Det äger ett bulkfartyg som transporterar råvaror över hela världshaven då också. Och vi kan då gå vidare till nästa slide här. Här har vi då lite om den finansiella utvecklingen. Bolaget är ju ursprungligen etablerat 2008 och tog fart 2018 med att ge ut sin första ränteobligation. Och det har utvecklat sig väl. Man ser här det egna kapitalet, så har vi på årsbasis då här sista december 2023 129 miljoner. Sen har vi sista december 2024 241 miljoner och nu sista juli så är vi uppe i 320 miljoner. Vi har också resultatet i år hittills till och med sista juli så hade vi ett EBITDA på 138 miljoner. Egna kapitalet som sagt 320, en kassa på 95 miljoner. Så att utvecklingen har varit starkt och allt uppsamlat resultat har ackumulerats och stannar kvar i Energifonden-koncernen så att soliditeten har ökat. I takt med att vi ger ut fler obligationslån så har också det egna kapitalet ökat så detta ska harmonisera så att man hamnar på en risknivå då som är relativt mjuk. Om vi tar nästa sida så kommer vi vidare lite grann till bolagsstyrningen. Vi kan ta nästa sida igen här direkt, så kommer vi in på styrelsen igen. Så då har vi Finn Jonsson som ordförande. Och Finn har ju tidigare varit styrelseordförande i Volvo bland annat och Västsvenska handelskammaren mera. Idag är han arbetande styrelseordförande också då i Thomas Concrete Group. Vi har mig själv och min tidigare erfarenhet som bland annat då byggt upp olika bränslebolag, shippingbolag, och vi har även då Agneta Johansson i styrelsen. Vi tar nästa sida här då, så ser man lite grann på säkerhetsmassan på en sån här ränteobligation som vi kommer in på erbjudandet senare då. Det är för att hela strukturen hänger ihop, hela koncernen hänger ihop och all säkerhet, all body och egna kapitalet samlas ju i Energifonden Sverige AB som är moderbolaget. Så att utestående ränteobligationsinnehavare får en betalningsgaranti från moderbolaget. Det är för att allting hänger samman. Man kan inte bara plocka ut Energifonden Sverige 2 separat, utan det hänger samman. Så att Energifonden Sverige ställer sig som garant och betalningsgarant för utestående ränteobligationer om någonting skulle hända med att det behöver ställas in betalningar på räntor och liknande. Och det har ju hittills då inte behövt göras någon gång eller tas i anspråk den här säkerheten, och det hoppas vi inte ska behövas framledes heller. Om vi tar nästa sida här då, så får man se erbjudande sammandrag. Det hänger ihop med ungefär som vi har gjort tidigare i de sista 7 åren här som vi har gett ut obligationer. Det är alltså varje obligation här kostar 25 000 kronor är den posten på. Det är inget courtage, det är inga årliga avgifter. Vi har en som löper 3 år. En som löper 5 år. Den 3-åriga får 7% årlig ränta och den 5-åriga får 9% årlig ränta. Vi betalar alltid ut räntan halvårsvis var 6:e månad. Det går automatiskt. Vi administreras av Euroclear. Så vi kan ta nästa sida här. Ja, hur gör man då för att kunna få med och teckna de här erbjudandena då? Våra ränteobligationer. Så det enklaste är att man går in på vår hemsida. Väldigt enkelt klicka sig vidare där. Eller gå in på Mangold Fondkommissions hemsida. Det spelar ingen roll. Och där kan man då med bank-ID väldigt enkelt fylla i och anmäla sig till många obligationer man önskar och teckna för då. Man kan även få, det går även bra att skicka in fysisk anmälningssedel. Man kan skriva ut den från vår hemsida. Och man kan även höra av sig till oss, så kan vi posta den till er då. Så att det finns, alla kan vara med och det är väldigt enkelt. Om vi tar nästa sida här, så är det då, här är kontaktuppgifterna. Väldigt enkelt kan man ringa vårt kontor eller mejla, och mer information kan man allting läsa på vår hemsida energifonden.eu. Där ligger all information om historiska ränteobligationer som vi getts ut och våra årsredovisningar och liknande, och våra innehav framförallt, vad vi investerar i.
Tack för det, Fredrik. Kort och kärnfullt här. Jag tänker så här, det har ju varit en om inte så tuff så oerhört volatil marknad och även volatil makro här. Och trots det så har ni ju en stadig kassa och ett starkt EBITDA, vilket jag tror att många i marknaden, och då menar jag inte de som investerar utan som kanske är investeringsobjekt, har säkert noterat. Är det svårare eller lättare att hitta investeringsobjekt idag, tycker du, än det har varit tidigare? Eller är det lika?
Nej, men det går väl upp och ner lite grann det där att hitta rätt. Va? Vi får ju väldigt många propåer, men det är väldigt få som lever upp till våra förväntningar och våra krav. Att ska vara kassaflödespositiva. Vi går inte in i saker som inte genererar något positivt kassaflöde, utan inga startups, inga sådana saker. Utan det vi håller oss till vid vår läst, kan man säga. Det är ju mycket bränslebolag och det är oljeinvesteringar och det är det här med tankfartygsinvesteringar och liknande. Det är det som också gör att vi har skapat de här resultaten, för vi har sin erfarenhet utav detta och då kan läsa av de här cyklerna och komma in rätt och liknande. Och om man kommenterar resultatet som är hittills i år, så är ju det en frukt. Alltså, Vi skördar nu egentligen vad vi gjorde förra året. För förra året var vi inte så investerade. Vi låg och väntade och avvaktade, så investerade vi hårt på hösten. Bland annat med etablera Pallas Tankers, förvärva den här supertanken Anita Pallas 3. Och har då, enligt vår analys, skulle då den här marknaden sticka iväg här under våren och sommaren i år. Och det gjorde den. Och det är det vi nu ser då i vår resultaträkning. Frukten då.
Ja, så man kan väl säga då att det kanske är så att det finns fler objekt eller investeringsobjekt ute på marknaden, men det är inte så att det blivit flera attraktiva för er attraktiva objekt. Är det så vi ska tolka situationen nu, Fredrik?
Så kan man sammanfatta det. Vi är ju rätt så kräsna och för att uppfylla då vår investeringsfilosofi och så det finns jättemycket propåer, men det är väldigt få som passar oss. Men, det är bättre på kräsen.
Ja, så ni har bråda dagar där ni får sålla. Du nämnde Pallas Tankers här och Agneta Pallas, och det lät ju väldigt spännande. Den låg i Kongo på väg till Indien. Vad innebär det rent praktiskt för fonden då när ni har den här typen av kontrakt?
Ja, det skapar ju framtida trygga kassaflöden. Så att nu när marknaden är så pass väldigt stark för de här typen av tankfartygen, så har vi låst in då den så att säga intäkterna då ett år framåt och låst det på en hög nivå. Så att då kan vi vara trygga och säkra ett år framåt för Energifonden. Med tanke på att detta är ett stort innehav och det genererar stora resultat och kassaflöden till Energifonden. Så det känns väldigt bra. Att vår analys var rätt.
Ja, men det var ju spännande där, och det här ligger ju då även till grunden då, som sagt var, till avkastningen då. Men om man då tittar till alla objekt som finns ute att investera i, och så kan vi ju titta då på Pallas Tankers delen här, och så kopplar jag det till att ni inte är så många i ett investeringsråd. Hur lång tid tar det då från ax till limpa, det vill säga från förslag till det att ni har en ägarandel? Finns det något sorts, ska vi säga, benchmark, att det tar 1 månad, 3 månader eller?
Ja, 6 månader eller 3 månader är väl vanligt, men 6 månader ska jag säga.
Så ni har en hel del som ligger och så att säga kokar där, som ni skulle kanske kunna tänka er att investera i. Spännande där. Och sen bara för min egen kunskap här. Hur många lån har ni emitterat med halvårsvis ränteutbetalning sedan 2018 som ni har varit igång?
Ja, det är ju 21 stycken då. Det blir 23 med de här 2 nuvarande då.
Ja. Och du nämnde ju här nu att ni har lån på 3-5 år. Och har ni alltid haft 3-5 år? Eller hur kommer man fram till just de här 3-5 åren?
Ja, generellt har vi haft det. Vi har ett undantag på 2-årig vid något tillfälle, ett par tillfällen. Det hänger lite grann ihop med hur vår investeringscykel ser ut. Alltså. Vi vill någonstans kunna ha lite arbetsro och 3-5 år att jobba med innehaven innan man kan göra en försäljning och avyttring av dem. Och sen sätta in det i nya bolag och projekt då.
Och just bara för att understryka det då, det här innebär ju alltså att ni kan sälja objekten efter 3 år, men inom de här 5 åren.
Oh ja.
Investerar du själv i obligationerna?
Ja, hela styrelsen.
Ja. Och som sagt, om man nu vill investera, hur gör man då?
Väldigt enkelt, klickar sig in på energifonden.eu och där på startsidan kan man välja 3-årig eller 5-årig, och så står det klicka här för att teckna. Och då kommer man vidare till teckningssidan på Mangold fondkommission, och så gör man med BankID, väldigt enkelt. Eller så kan man skriva ut på skrivaren en helt vanlig enkel fysisk anmälningssedel. Finns också tillgänglig väldigt enkelt på vår hemsida. Eller så ringer man oss och så får man posta teckningssedel på posten.
Ja, så det är inte bråda dagar bara med att hitta investeringsobjekt och hantera dem, utan det är nu även att svara på frågor här från luttrade spekulanter.
Så är det.
Ja. Och minsta belopp?
Det är en post, så det är 25 000 kronor.
Ja. Och finns det någon maxgräns?
Nej, man får teckna så många man önskar då, så är det.
Så även institutioner är välkomna att knacka på dörren?
Ja, det finns också.
Hur fungerar tilldelningen?
Det är ju först i kvarnprincipen, så att det går på datumvis då. I takt med att det ramlar in då.
Ja, så de som var med här från början, de har en mycket större sannolikhet att de får en tilldelning än de som kommer in på slutet, är det så?
Korrekt.
Ja. Kan du säga någonting om hur det går? 7-9% känns som väldigt attraktivt, kan jag ju tycka.
Jajamän. Ja, vi brukar inte uttala oss om det så under teckningstiden, men jag kan säga att det går väldigt bra. Det går väldigt bra och det är väldigt stort och högt intresse.
Ja, det låter ju spännande det där då. Och om vi bara repeterar här, ni stänger när då?
7 november.
Ja, men det kan ju vara en idé om man är intresserad att höra av sig innan, eftersom vi då som sagt har först till kvarn och det finns bara den storleken på obligationslånet som är angivet. Är det rätt uppfattat?
Ja, det är just det. Precis så är det.
Ja. Tack för det, Fredrik, och lycka till. Det var roligt att se dig.
Tack detsamma, Carlo. Tack.
Ja. Och med det så ska vi vara alldeles strax tillbaka med nästa bolag som då är PTX-Metals. Och nu är det hög tid att introducera PTX-Metals. PTX-Metals är ett kanadensiskt börsnoterat gruvbolag vars målsättning är att via högkvalitativa projekt och lukrativa royaltyavtal skapa och öka aktieägarvärdet. Något bolaget är på god väg att uppnå. Eftersom PTX är engelskspråkigt kommer presentationen nu att fortsätta på engelska. So it's with great pleasure and also high time to welcome Greg Ferron, CEO of PTX-Metals. Hello and welcome to Invest Live, Greg. How are things?
Great, thank you. Nice to be back. Nice seeing you again, Carlo. I guess it was May of this year that we last met in person. I really much enjoyed the trip, and the good news is there's been a lot done in the sector and the company since then.
Cool. Well, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, happy to do so. And so I'll do a short presentation, and then I know you've got some questions planned as well. And just to recap, so PTX-Metals is a Toronto-based company. We're listed, our main listing is in Canada on the TSX Venture, and we're an all Ontario-focused portfolio of a polymetallic project, copper, platinum, palladium, and as well as a gold portfolio. And as mentioned, Carlos, when we met back in May, a lot's changed. In the equity markets. For example, they remain very strong, and there's been a big shift towards commodities, as you're aware, the pricing, the interest from investors, the amount of funding, and the M&A and all that has been picking up. And there's also a big push in Canada and other countries to really support these critical minerals and develop infrastructure and develop these projects. So that continues to improve, and I think that's attracting capital as well. And then at PTX, we just completed our biggest financing to date, so we're well financed, and we're quite active now moving both of our projects forward. So a lot's changed, and I think now we're really well positioned, just with the backdrop, with the market, with the overall interest globally to develop these projects. Critical minerals, as you know, you need for technology and updating the electrical grid, for example, in the U.S. And even this morning, you saw a big announcement between the U.S. government, Cameco, Brookfield about developing a significant amount of capital into the nuclear industry, just recognizing the amount of data and energy needed for AI. So I think we're really well positioned from a valuation standpoint. The fact that we're well financed, the stock's been trading really well. And typically it's a great time to buy these junior companies after financing, because you've got lots of work ahead and there won't be any interruptions in terms of other financings, and then other M&A and other things can also transpire in these markets. So again, just a few key points, sort of the elevator pitch. We've got two interesting projects in Ontario, Canada, Ontario obviously being a top mining jurisdiction, one of the largest gold producing regions in the world, and as well a big copper, nickel producing region as well. And of course, your viewers would know that Canada is a big producer of other commodities like uranium, potash, oil, for example. And we're also very active in two of the top regions in Ontario, one being the Ring of Fire, and the second, the Abitibi on the Ontario border. And our W2 project is our more advanced project. It's at the resource stage, and I'll show you that deposit in a moment. But just as a quick back of the envelope calculation, there's over 1 billion pounds of copper at 0.58 using a conservative cutoff, and we believe that can get significantly larger as we do more exploration in these two open pits we have. And then that's combined with about 2 million ounces of platinum, palladium, gold as well in the two main deposits. And again, we think that it can grow significantly, and that's based on about 125 drill holes over an 8-kilometer strike length. So it's looking like quite a significant deposit. And then we've also had a couple gold discoveries at our South Timmins gold portfolio. We've got about 6 million cash in the bank. We've got no debt, 20 million market cap, experienced board, and we've got a very diverse shareholder base we'll talk about later, both in Europe and seen a lot of interest in buying shares in from Europe and the US. And we're actually now starting to see a lot of activity in Canada as well. And our projects are 100% owned, and there's no payments outstanding. So here is a map of Ontario. That's the US border. You have Quebec over on the east side, and Alberta, Manitoba further west. And that is the Ring of Fire. That's our W2 project in gold, located in the northern part of Ontario. On that ring is what I'm showing there. There's been a lot of development in terms of roads and power lines and investment to open up some of these camps like Red Lake, which your viewers would be familiar with, Muscle White, an operating mine. And they really want to put in a lot of the infrastructure to the north of the railway, because obviously the railway and the ports provide great access to refineries like Sudbury, for example, or access to the Atlantic Ocean. And so we think we're really well positioned in that camp. As the infrastructure comes in, we think we've got one of the better deposits there. And we think it's makes a lot of sense to be investing our capital at this point in time. And then the gold portfolio down in the southern part of Ontario in the gold region between IM Gold and Aris Juby deposit. So just really quick, capital structure, 20 million market cap, but 170 million shares trading. The stock's been trading about 2 million shares a day in Canada and about 1 million in the US. If you include all the alternative markets. So there's been a lot of liquidity, which I'm quite happy about. And usually, typically a chart breaking out, will predate a lot of volume and a financing. And I think that's where we are in terms of the overall cycle with the workflow that's coming, and then just the overall market conditions. And as you can see, there's a big shareholder base in Europe, management, insiders, and some board members. We've also got some institutions. There is about 4 or 5 institutions that participated in the last financing. Alamos is a shareholder, Fan Campus, so a few mining companies. And I have been, as mentioned, I've been seeing a lot of trading liquidity coming from the US. So I think the US market is really starting to add to these small cap junior commodity companies. So really just the big picture strategy with W2, we're trying to do 2 things. We want to develop a big tonnage, low to medium grade near surface deposit. And we have a big benefit from a lot of the historical work that's been done. And at the same time, now that we've been confirming that historical work, that resource, we're starting to look at the higher grade component of the deposit, where we've seen up to 11% copper, 11 grams gold, and 4 grams platinum palladium. So there's a number of strategies we're putting in place with this next drill program to better target that high grade material. And then we want to continue developing the gold discoveries. And then corporately, with that strong liquidity, we're hoping the shares start breaking out and looking to add strategic capital as well. And just really quickly, your viewers, probably need to be paying attention to the overall market Gold's up 50% this year. You're seeing copper now starting to break out. The venture index, which is, trades a lot of these small cap technology, energy, mining companies in Canada. It's had a nice year, up about 50%, and you're seeing a lot of money moving into the sector. It's not uncommon now to see $100 million financings getting done. And at the same time, it's got a nice backdrop for the equity markets with the rates coming down. The overall equity markets are quite strong. And then, as mentioned earlier, there's big support to be investing in these mines and projects, not just in Canada, but globally. And you're seeing things like I mentioned earlier today, like that big announcement today about more nuclear reactors being built in the US. In conjunction with two Canadian companies, Brookfield and Cameco. Last week, I saw a big fund in New York, Orion, announce a $5 billion raise to invest in copper nickel projects in safe jurisdictions. So this is a snapshot of the region we're in, known as the Ring of Fire, where we own the W2 project. These are big scale projects, 250 square kilometers. You can see some of our neighbors, Juno, Wailu, Teck, Barrick, for example. And it's a mafic project. So it's a polymetallic. So it hosts, it's gabbro that hosts the copper, and you also have nickel sulfides and then platinum palladium as well. And you can see these are the two big deposits at surface, the CA1 and the AP, and that's that 8-kilometer strike length I talked about. And what you're looking at here is a mag survey that we flew, and it's showing the gabbro horizon. And we believe a lot of this area at surface that's undrilled, you can see in red, is all mineralized. So you've got the two main deposits, and then you've got these sort of step out. So what the step outs mean is you're trying to extend that mineralization from these known structures. And so this AP East would be like 3 holes. This would be about 5 holes. This is about 15 holes and a couple holes here. So with this new program, we're going to start trying to expand, because we believe that hull is one mineralized structure. And you can see from the recent program we did this year, some of the work we're doing is quite interesting. You can see the historical drilling here. They were just very selectively sampling for high grade material. So all we're doing is just improving the confidence. We're extending it down another 100 meters, adding more mineralization. We're assaying from top to bottom, as you can see. And more importantly, we're assaying for platinum, palladium, gold, whereas they were typically only looking for copper, nickel. This image in the second B is basically trying to show the continuity 3 kilometers away. We're hitting the same ore body at the same depth over similar wide widths, similar grades. So just showing that there is continuity and why we believe it's all one structure. And this third image is really just trying to show investors the impact we're having by assaying for platinum, palladium. You can see we're adding precious metals over the same width in these holes that wasn't previously done. And I won't spend too much time in this, but there is a 43-101 on our website, and this just basically breaks down by cutoff, showing the pounds of copper, nickel. So 1.4 billion pounds of copper, over 2 million ounces, and that's using a 0.3 cutoff. And we believe that, and then I break down by the commodity. And then, we believe that can get a lot larger. And this is just the program that we're underway right now. You can see what we're doing here. We're going to continue doing some of that infill drilling where I showed you, just improving the confidence of the historical work, but also now some more step out. So you can see these 2 holes in red to the left. Basically what we're doing there, undrilled areas, we believe that whole area is mineralized, which can add a lot of tons. So we obviously want to test these step out and expansion holes before you start doing like engineering to design the pits. You need to understand the layout, and this is just showing some of the higher grade mineralization we'll be looking for as we target these massive sulfide zones, because we've done a really good job confirming that disseminated material right at surface, and now we want to switch the strategy to the high grade. And just really quickly, our gold projects in purple, located in the southern part of Ontario, known as the Abitibi. We're south of Timmins, and this is a big mine producing region, the largest in Canada, and it's got a number of operating mines and mills within 5 kilometers, and it hosts these big deposits on the Rideout Deformation Zone. You can see Cote is about a 10 million ounce deposit, Juby is about a 4 million ounce deposit, and we've been having some very good success making discoveries in that central area of our property, and we're going to allocate about $500,000 to this project for additional drilling. That's starting currently right now, and this is where we're allocating approximately $3 million from that financing to our copper project, just doing metallurgy, geophysics review, which is really showing the potential of the project at depth, which will be our next press release, and then some engineering and drilling we talked about. And yeah, so that's kind of a quick overview, Carlu, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you. Excellent, Greg. Very interesting. And it seems like there's been a lot of things going on since you were here in May. But first things first, for those of us not so familiar with the expression ring of fire, because there's a lot of companies that you have there, please enlighten us. That is a certain area where there are proven resources, I take it?
Yep, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you know, it's funny, last night the World Series was on, and the Blue Jays are playing the Dodgers, and they were playing the ads, the government, about the big investment they want to make in the Ring of Fire and how it'll have a positive impact on the communities and, you know, the economy. And basically you've got an area that isn't really that remote. It's not like, you know, we're dealing with the Yukon or, you know, very northern parts of BC, for example, or in the mountains or North Quebec. It's not that far from Thunder Bay or Pickle Lake. Ontario is a huge province, obviously. But there is this area north of Thunder Bay. It's about 4 hours. And there's a number of significant deposits, and you name it. It's a very interesting geological formation. You've got polymetallic projects like W2, which is the main mineralization. You've got like Eagle's Nest as well, which is a very high-grade deposit owned by Wailu. And then you've also got big chromite deposits. You've got titanium, vanadium deposits as well, so critical minerals, rare metals. And there's also been some gold discoveries, as I understand, recently. So as the government wants to open up the region, obviously take into account, you know, the environmental impact is very important. It's very remote, which is ideal, but they want to build some mining towns there to support the mines, and they're going to be bringing in roads and power lines. So as that comes in, obviously there'll be more development and more exploration and more deposits. And, you know, for example, in southern Ontario, you've got the very prolific Sudbury copper nickel camp, right, which is one of the best camps in the world. You know, that's been mined for 100 years, and so there's a real push to have another copper nickel mining camp. Well, as well as Sudbury. And then the other benefit there is Sudbury's got all the refineries you need with capacity to process this ore. So it's another way to, you know, there's a lot of synergies between the two camps in Ontario.
And you touched upon it on a slide, and also you mentioned it here a couple of times, that the government are quite keen on investments and very supportive. So enlighten us here. There is a new Prime Minister, I take it, so that means that the sitting government won't change in a couple of years. So one could, let's say, nullify the political threats. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, there's a few factors. So a lot of the decisions are made at the provincial level, and they have been the ones, you know, pushing through a lot of the investments and very supportive of mining, and they've actually done a great job developing the sector. And then you've got the federal government as well that can help in terms of things like investing in infrastructure, for example. So for the first time in a long time, you've got both the federal and provincial governments very supportive of mining. The employment, you know, the big benefit to the overall economy, that's something Canada's very good at. And then you've also got support sort of on both the political parties as well. And so, yeah, so I think it's correct. There is a new prime minister, and I think regardless of who's in power at the federal level, there is such support to develop these projects now: energy, mining, infrastructure, pipelines. But the current prime minister does seem to be very supportive of the Ring of Fire in particular. And what he's done is he's named a number of strategic camps, investments in each province. For example, Quebec may have a couple strategic projects, BC may have a couple, Alberta and Ontario, and they're putting, improved permitting, improved investment in these regions, and the Ring of Fire is one that they've selected for Ontario.
So both the local and the federal, let's say, authorities are on your side. What about the First Nations?
Well, the First Nations, I've worked in, I think, about over 10 different projects in Ontario, and really all different regions of Ontario. And what's fascinating for me is just the involvement and the level of knowledge and how it can change from one region. So for example, in Sudbury, Timmins, the First Nations are very involved in the revenue, the businesses, and they're very involved in the employment. And whereas other parts of Ontario, it's not that they're not supportive, they just don't have that history, right? So I think they are very interested in how the other regions have profited as well and created jobs. So I think that the First Nations look to the other communities and other regions, so how they can build these businesses. So that's what I see happening now in the Ring of Fire. You can tell there's an interest to develop new companies, to build roads, to participate in mining. So it's great. And I think they really see the economic benefit from it. And then obviously just the improvements too, with as roads come in and power comes in, it's going to improve their the communities they live in as well. So I'd say it's overall very supportive, as long as you have to obviously work with the communities and follow the permitting guidelines that are set out by the government. And in some jurisdictions, for example, getting an exploration program underway can take 60 days, and in some areas it can take a year.
But you got 3 of 3 there, which is good. The improved market for metals and minings, as you mentioned, and there's a lot of things going on, and the underlying raw material price has gone up. But have you noticed any particular practical change? Are there majors knocking on your doors, more interested in your assets? And or is it more difficult to hire a skilled workforce?
I think you're starting to see a little bit of a change already. I think they always seem to lag a bit. So I think my guess is in a year from now, looking for engineers and geologists and environmental experts will be difficult, and supplies. But right now things seem to be fine. But I noticed things tightening up a little bit for sure. And then I think the biggest change we've seen is you're starting to see improved valuations first with the producers, and a lot of capital coming into the market, because a lot of these mining companies were underinvested. So that's kind of the first thing, is they're all getting recapitalized. And then from that, you'll probably start seeing the M&A pick up, because the valuations, if they continue, there are things are going to get a lot more expensive. So you're starting to see, for example, Alamos has been doing some acquisitions. I think what they've seen to be doing is very accretive acquisitions, so buying things that enhance where they're currently operating, which makes a lot of sense. So for example, they bought some projects in Quebec, and my guess is you could probably see them do some similar M&A in and around the Côté deposit. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. And I would assume a lot of these companies will then start buying completely new mines in new regions as well, is probably a next step. So, and then you're starting to see some of the big majors merging as well, like your Teck, and you've heard rumors about Barrick and that type of thing. So those things usually happen first, and then you'll probably see a lot of the juniors starting to get acquired.
Interesting, and that's a perfect segue into my next question, as we almost as we had rehearsed it. But and I will expose my ignorance here, because you mentioned the TSX-Metals, and that was up 50% or something like that on a year.
Yep.
But is that due to short covering, or what's going on there? Because if memory serves correct, there's been the miners have been lagging, and there's been a lot of complaining from the miners that they have been shorted over a long time period. So basically what I'm driving at here is that despite the fact that the index is up 50%, that's more of a, let's say, a normalization, and it will be, let's say, sound investments from here.
Yeah, no. Well, good question. I mean, you're right. You had seen a steady decline of the TSX Venture Index over the past 10 years. And then at the same time, you've seen, very strong interest in AI and these big technology companies like Amazon, for example, or Facebook. But now, there just seems to be more interest in commodities and in equities. But at the same time, you're still seeing very strong equity markets. So I can't comment too much on the shorting. I mean, I think maybe with all the algorithm trading and all the alternative markets over the past number of years and the lack of interest for buyers, I'm sure there has been some shorting and downward pressure. But what happens right now is you're seeing companies move because the selling pressure is coming off. So if you make a discovery or you close a financing or bring a strategic investment, you're seeing big moves to the upside now starting. So I think that is going to make the guys that are shorting these stocks to be a little more cautious, right? And then maybe you can almost get the algos sort of moving in your favor as they start seeing upward momentum. Then they'll start buying, as opposed to before they only saw one way down.
And as you mentioned, the balance sheet for the miners and so on, you recently announced final closing of a private placing, three investment types or occasions. Could you walk us quickly through that? What was the genius behind that?
Yeah. So basically, it was a private placement. 6.6 million we raised. It was actually an offering, so they were freely tradable shares. So the reason we did that is a lot of investors don't like these 4-month hold paper because you have a wall of shares that are then become freely tradable in 4 months. So now being freely tradable, you don't have that issue in 4 months, which is ideal. And what we do in Canada is most of the money you raise is through a flow-through system, which requires you to put the money in the ground, and you get a premium for that. And so what we did was a charity flow through. So it was a 50% premium from the hard dollar financing. So roughly 50% of the money was hard dollars, and 50% of it was charity flow through to use for expiration.
And no, you don't have any debt?
No, there's no debt.
No debt.
And now, we'll probably get a lot of work done on the properties, and, we won't look to finance for the short term. And hopefully we see, strong move in our shares as the results, and the fact that we don't have to finance, and the improved marketing. Maybe we'll look to do something more strategic in the new year with institutions, for example, or corporate.
And you mentioned polymetal. So how would you like us in the market to view PTX-Metals? Are you a PMG company, copper, nickel, or polymetal? And if the latter, whom would you like us to pair you with?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So it is a polymetallic project. It's a mafic deposit, so it's not a copper porphyry. There are a number of these mafic deposits. For example, there's one in Finland called Suhanko, which is more of a platinum palladium. Chalice in Western Australia is also a polymetallic, so it's a platinum palladium with copper nickel. And there's a number of these deposits in Minnesota, in Duluth. One, for example, that's being built by Teck and Glencore, called NorthMet, which is more of a copper dominant, and then with the credits of platinum palladium. So I'd say we're more of a copper deposit because that's what really drives the economics, but there is a big component of platinum palladium, and as well as nickel sulfides. Yeah, so I'm not sure if I answered your question, but you probably could look at us as both as a platinum palladium with copper credits as well, or the other way around, a copper project with the platinum palladium credits.
And then a follow-up question here would then be, so what's your end game? Would you be a producer or would you be acquired? I noticed that you have Alamons on the share holder registered, and if I'm not mistaken, all your assets are 100% owned by you. So if you were to be acquired, it will be, let's say, well, I should say easier with my limited knowledge, because you have 100% as control of your assets. So what's it going to be, producer or acquire, and how much can you answer on that?
Yeah, well, I think something we're thinking about eventually doing would be to separate the gold and the polymetallic. Mm-hmm. So the gold trades as a separate vehicle. That to me makes a lot of sense. And but in the meantime, we want to keep moving that project forward. But the W2 project, I think that it's an ideal project that as that camp gets developed further and more investment comes in, that it probably should be acquired and built part of the other mines that are being built. For example, if someone's going to be building a concentrator, that makes a lot of sense to have multiple mines operating. So I don't think it's a project that we want to build. It's a project that we'd like to de-risk. So we've done some metallurgy, keep doing the metallurgy, keep growing the resource, keep confirming the resource quality, find more high grade. Those are the kind of things that we can do to increase the interest.
So you'll do the job, and we in the market will continue to watch this space. Okay. Thank you so much, Greg. Very interesting. And if anyone has any further questions, where shall we direct them?
Yeah, well, you can go to our website, PTX-Metals.com. And SETI in Canada, there's a regulatory filing for all of our financial statements, for example, and then there's a number of other investor websites that have information about us. And we're traded on 3 exchanges, the OTCQB in the US, TSX in Canada, and then there's a bit of volume as well in Frankfurt.
Excellent. Well, Greg, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And great seeing you again.
Och tack till alla er som har tittat, och så säger vi på återseende till nästa gång. Tack ska ni ha. Hej!